Strong chess isn't only about finding good moves, it's also about asking the right questions. One of the most useful is, what can I improve? Let's put that question to the test. Before searching for a move, I'd like you to spend a little time simply understanding what's happening on the board. That's always the first step in positional chess. Many players immediately ask, what move should I play? But a better question comes first. What is this position really about? To answer that, we need to look at three things. What is already good in my position? Because we don't want to ignore our strengths or give up the things that are already working well. Second, what are the weaknesses? These are the things that might need attention. And only then we ask the final question, what can I improve? Take your time, imagine you're playing black, don't search for the best move. Understand the position first, and then find the improvement. In white's camp, only the isolated pawn is a long-term weakness. Black, on the other hand, has a few positional concerns. The pawn on e6 is backward, and it comes together with a weak square e5. The knight on f8 might look passive, but it has an important defensive role. It controls the light squares, especially h7 in case white creates the b1 h7 battery with queen d3. The bishop on c8 is a completely different kind of animal. Yes, it defends e6, but we shouldn't overprotect a pawn that isn't under real pressure. Better approach is to improve our pieces and make the whole position more active. So the question is, how do we bring this bishop into the game? The first idea is to play b6 followed by bishop a6. At first glance, the bishop seems much more active. But is it? If we look a little closer, we notice that the diagonal is actually rather empty. The bishop certainly looks better than it did on c8, but in reality it doesn't influence anything important. Activity isn't measured by the length of a diagonal, it's measured by the pressure a piece creates. And here, well, there simply isn't much pressure. Let's look for another idea. And here is a useful rule to remember. Whenever you are choosing between different plans, try to find one that improves more than one thing at the same time. Those are usually the strongest positional moves and ideas. Well, e5 immediately catches the eye. It activates the bishop, the backward pawn on e6 disappears, and the e5 weakness is gone as well. Three problems seem to be solved with a single move. Sounds almost too good to be true. But before we get excited, every positional decision comes with a price. Once white captures on e5, black is left with an isolated pawn on d5. At the same time, white gets rid of their isolated pawn. So we have certainly improved our position, but we've also helped our opponent. And that's one of the hardest parts of positional chess. You're rarely improving your position for free. The real question is whether you gain more than you give up. But there is another issue. Can black even play e5 here? Well, at the moment, the pawn on d5 isn't protected. So before we can dream of pushing the e-pawn, we first have to solve that problem. And this brings us to a more patient approach. Instead of trying to solve everything immediately, what if we simply improve our weakest piece? The bishop can begin a familiar journey. d7, e8, and then, should it continue to g6 or h5? Let's simplify the position for a moment. We'll remove the pieces that are not directly involved in this decision and keep only the elements that matter. Now, let's ask a more general question. What is the best role for this bishop? Should black exchange it for white's strong light square bishop, or stay on the board and continue putting pressure on the knight with bishop h5? At first, exchanging bishops seems very attractive, as white's light square bishop is often one of their most important pieces in this kind of structure. But bishop h5 has a hidden point. We're not only activating the bishop, we're also increasing pressure on white's weak d4 pawn. The f3 knight is one of its defenders and the queen is another. If black later exchanges the bishop for the knight and the queen recaptures, the d4 pawn is no longer protected. This is exactly what improving your position means. So far we've only discussed ideas. Now let's see how this plan works in a real game. After bishop d7, white immediately realized where the bishop was heading, and reinforce the isolated pawn with bishop e3. Now, of course, bishop e8, and the coming pin is super annoying. If white tries h3 followed by g4, well, the bishop simply drops back to g6, and white is left with weakened dark squares and an exposed kingside. In the game, we had rook c1 and bishop h5. There's no way for white to avoid structural concessions now, so they played bishop b1. Now let's pause for another moment and return to the pawn structure we saw at the beginning. Both sides have a weakness in the center. White has an isolated pawn on d4, black has a backward pawn on e6. But which weakness matters more? Take a moment to think about it. Write your answer in the comments and then let's continue. Not all weaknesses are equally important. The pawn on e6 is still weak, theoretically, but white has no practical way to attack it. Black, meanwhile, has already forced white's pieces to defend the isolated pawn on d4. That tells us which weakness really matters. And this is one of the key ideas of positional chess. Activity can outweigh static weaknesses. We've improved one important piece in black's position, but the work isn't finished. Your task is to find a plan to improve another black piece that isn't doing much at the moment. Write your ideas in the comments, I'll read every one of them, and we'll continue from this position in the next lesson.